Hello folks, a couple of things I want to share with you this week, but let me start by showing you our attempt at a Christmas tree this year. This is our fireplace, and we've even got a bit of a funky fake fire going on in there with some pine cones from the tree down the road. Hope you're doing things in your household to make it Christmassy. There's two things that I would like to talk to you about today. Firstly, finances, and secondly, how we can be prayerfully approaching Christmas and summer. Finances. Last time I brought a giving update to church, the news was really encouraging. This time I bring news that's pretty challenging. It was encouraging last time because over the months of August and September, the giving that had come in was not only hitting our target budget, but was above that, which was really great because that helped us eat into the deficit that we'd occurred from some of the previous months in the year. But since that time, over the months of October and November, the giving has dropped $3 or $4 from those months, which you might imagine that's a challenging thing for a church when our costs of running ministry are regular. And particularly as we look into next year, where our costs will increase significantly as we bring on another gospel worker in order to help our church family function in a more healthy way, and so we can hold out the gospel better to the Coffs Coast. So that's what's ahead of us, and here's what's just happened. So can I ask you to prayerfully again consider your giving to the gospel work that God is doing through Anchor Church? Can I get you to think about December and January particularly? They can be tricky months for a church, and I know we're approaching Christmas and there's lots more costs, but can I get you to prayerfully consider your giving over December and January? One of the reasons why we may have had a bit of a spike in August and September is because that was around the time of a mini-series we did called Entrusted. And if you missed any of those weeks or you haven't got that series, go back on the podcast and have a listen. The idea of Entrusted, which is where we looked at giving, was not so that we'd get a big spike in giving in those 2 months. It was so that we would together consider a really important feature of the Christian life, which is our ongoing, regular, generous giving to the work of God's kingdom. And one of the key principles we looked at was considering that the first thing you think to do when you receive is to give. So if your income is regular, let your giving be regular. God is the one who entrusts to you what you have. He is the one who brings everything to you. He's the one who enables you to work and labour. And so the first thing we do is we honour him and we give to his work from what he has entrusted to us. So can I bring that to you again and encourage you to consider your giving? Some of you have got this locked down and you give generously and regularly and you've done it for many years. Bless you. For those of you who haven't got that sorted out yet, maybe you gave during that series, but then you haven't since. Can I encourage you to seriously consider regular giving? Consider what God is entrusting to you and prayerfully commit to what you can regularly give to the gospel work here at Anchor and beyond. And would you consider beginning in December and January and thinking right through next year? If you're new to Anchor and you haven't started giving yet, now would be a great time if you would consider beginning giving to the work of the church that you now belong to. It would be fantastic for us to be able to finish the year strong and particularly go into January strong. So there you go. There's an encouragement for you to prayerfully again consider the work of the gospel that's happening here in this church and how you can help resource that work. Your giving makes a difference. So please consider in December and January and beyond. The other thing I want to talk about is to prayerfully be thinking about the things that are coming up for us. And as you know, we've got our Christmas Eve service, 4 p.m. on Saturday the 24th. We're going to sing some carols and we're going to celebrate the arrival of Jesus. We've got our January series called Heading Home, where we look at the parable of the prodigal son, and we're particularly praying that lost sons and daughters would come home to God and his people. And then we've got Summer Days as well, which is our 3-day school holiday program. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then kind of encouraging new families that we connect with to come along to church on Sunday and continue with us. So there's a lot going on in what's just coming up. But can I ask you in this moment to be praying about who you might be able to invite to those things? Who is it in your life, your family, your friends, the people you know who are far from God, or maybe just gone through a season where they've been away from church for a couple of years? It's the kind of thing that happened really easily during COVID. Would you start praying? Maybe there's a certain day in the week where you could pray particularly, or a number of times. Would you start praying that God would lay on your heart the people who he is intending to bring back to himself, and that he would use you to extend an invite to people to encourage them to come along? Who is it that God might use you to bring back to him through our Christmas Eve service? Who could you bring along? That's an easy invite, Christmas Eve. Have you got a neighbour, friend, family you could invite to come? Pass on the invite. Have you got someone you can invite to come over January? That parable of the prodigal son. It's a beautiful picture of a welcoming God who wants his lost sons and daughters to come home. Can you pray about who you could invite to that? Could you pray about who you can invite to come to Summer Days? Do you know anyone with primary school kids? Have you got primary school kids? Can you invite their friends to come along? Could you be on the support team that helps run all the logistics for that program? Be prayerful and particularly ask God to help you to be considering how he's going to use you in this season. It's an exciting time ahead. We've got a lot planned, and we trust that God would use us over summer. When the rest of our community is kind of winding down, we as a church continue to function in a way that actually keeps the door wide open to people who are often quite open to new things over Christmas and the new year. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see people who have never been in church, or people who've just been away for a long time, decide to come back, and there we are with wide arms, with the welcoming arms of God, to welcome them back. Wouldn't that be awesome? Can you pray about that? Yeah, there you go. Those two things. Love you guys. See you soon. Hope that's helpful.